Hello my livings and back to another Fabian channel. I'm Jacob Books Corner, and today we are doing my quarterly stats video. We're also going to talk about my 5 favorite books I've read so far this year. All these books, any 5 stars really, are contenders for best book of the year. These are the top 5 that I feel like have a really high chance of being my favorite book of the year. Fun fact, I normally find my favorite book of the year in March. I sometimes also find my favorite movie in March. I don't know if that's the case this year. Saw so far my favorite movie in January. Competitive, I guess. That being said, I have a lot of stats to go over, so if you're not a stat girly, there will be chapter times linked down below for the stat portion and then the favorite portion. So you can jump around and do whatever you desire. And it looks like one of my babies is coming to join me while we talk about all this. I have a lot of different information to go over. I track like literally everything. I don't know if you know this or not. All that is all fun, jazzy information. I also have some spreads, as we're going to be talking about each month individually, and then we're also going to be talking about them together. I don't have spreads for them individually, but I do have photos of all of them. If you guys did not know, this year I've made nothing but tiny little books, which I adore, and I think they're super cute. I actually think I might make this shelf or this shelf into that so you guys can see it, and maybe it'll be easier for me to control. I'm not entirely sure yet. Also, I was going to take pictures, and let me know if you want to take pictures next time of all the books on their star rating as I talk about the star ratings. However, I didn't have all the books for some reason. A few of them have disappeared, so I didn't feel comfortable making that footage. But I should have all the books and everything should be fine next quarter. All right, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start obviously with the stats section. And we're going to start with January. January, I have several different things to put up on the screen. So we're going to do a plethora of stuff. I'll keep the stats probably on the side with the other pictures probably covering me up or something. I'm not entirely sure. We'll see what editing Jacob decides to do. But I also have like all these like fun little pages that you guys normally don't get to see. And that's like my timeline of the month for January, which I guess I'll throw up. Maybe I'll take a picture of it as well. That being said, in January, I read a total of 19 books, which equaled out to be 4,702 pages. Out of those 19 books, the average rating was a 4.13, and I read 26 out of the 31 days. This is the only month that I did not read every single day consistently. Sometimes, I'm not gonna lie, I read like 6 or 7 pages on the weekend. I don't typically read a lot on the weekend because it's my only time where I'm off, but I read a lot during the work week, so it's normally just like a few pages of whatever book I was finishing during the work week. But that's okay. But it's the only month that I missed 5 days. If you guys are curious what days those were, I don't know why you would be. But if you are, I can tell you. That's the 17th, the 18th, the 19th, the 25th, and the 26th. They're both all the days that I did not read that month. All right, moving on. Oh, also some other random fun facts. I typically have a day and during the month where I read 4 to 5 books a day, like in that single day. And I was curious what days those were throughout the entirety. So let's go over January 27th was the date. And you're going to see they're normally in the back half of the month. I read 782 pages that day, which equated to 5 different books. On to February. February is a notoriously small month because it's only 28 days. And I read every single day, and I read a book a day. If you do the math, it's 28 books, so a book a day. But I didn't technically read a book a day. There are certain days I read more books. It doesn't matter. That equated to 7,249 pages, which is really interesting when we talk about March here in a second. Averagely, I went to a 4, so it has gone down as the months have progressed. And I read 28. I read every day that month. Also, interestingly enough, I actually think a 4 for reading 28 books in a single month is actually it's pretty good. When I was reading 30 to 35 books a month last year, average rating was like a 3.5 or a 3.2, somewhere around there. It's like really low 3, because when you read a bunch, sure, every book you go into, you're hoping you're gonna love it. You're hoping it's gonna be the next best thing you've ever read, and you're craving, you're like almost chasing that 5-star. However, the majority of them are not. And the majority of them kind of suck. And that was really bad last year, in my opinion. On February 22nd was my really high day. And that was 1,284 pages I read that day over the course of 4 different books, which is kind of crazy to me, if I'm being honest. I really liked February's spread, to be fair. It's this one. You can see that we moved from big books to small books for this section of my thing. So yeah, there's that. Continuing back to March. So moving on to March. March, I read 25 books, which equaled out to be 8,840 pages with a 3.7 star rating. I read every single day of March for 31 to 31. Once again, the weekends I'm sure are low days, like 6 or 7 pages, but yet I still read every day, which I feel really happy about, I'm gonna be honest with you. March, however, interestingly enough, which March 21st, my most read page, my highest reading day, for that month. I read 1,685 pages over the course of 5 books. I think on that day I read 4, but I was reading Cursebound, which was a sequel to a novel I read last year. It's in a vlog if you're curious. And in that day, I think I read the majority of it, so it counted towards the actual like equivalent of those pages. March was, I didn't tell you what the themes were for my bullet journals, but March was March 17th. Don't ask about it. Those do cover all the individual stats. I do have some other fun stats. Total wise, for the first quarter, I read 72 books, and that was the course of 20,791 pages, which is really good. By June, I'm hoping to read 150 books, so 72 is not a bad number to get started with. Average rating is a 3.94 for this quarter. I'm not mad about that. I feel like I did read a lot of meh with some like really big standouts, and I feel like the rating does encompass that. I also read some rereads and stuff, so I feel like there are some 4s out there that are simply 4s because of them being a 4. I've also been reading a lot of series, as you guys know, for all these different videos that I have planned out. The sequels are hard, and I feel like they all kind of equate to like a 4.25 at the moment, so that plays a factor. That being said, I read 85 out of the 90 days of this quarter, which I'm also extremely happy about. I'm hoping that when we come back in 3 months that I've read every single day instead of just like, not missing 5 days. And then I was curious, okay, if I read 85 days and I read over 20,000 pages, what does that equal to, like, if I was reading every single day? What does it equal out? And if it was just for the 85 days, the days that I actually did read, 244 pages a day. However, if we're looking at 90 as a whole, because there's technically 90 days, and we're going to assume I read every day for this equation, it was 231 pages a day, which I'm also happy about, because the majority of novels that I like reading are novellas, because I find a story quick and sweet to be the most satisfying. With that being said, let's go ahead and talk about the ratings themselves. I had 6 books this month that are this quarter that I did not rate. In reality, it was actually like 2 or 3. These are short story collections. I have 2 of those that I did not rate. And then I had my own personal projects that I'm currently rereading and reworking through. So we have GSR, and then we also have Dragnoia, which is my little sister's fantasy project. Moving on, I had 0 1-stars this year, which I'm very, very happy about. There is one novel that's a 2.75 because it's a short story collection that I did rate a single story a 1 star in that collection, but I can't rate the whole thing. I had 12 2 stars, 32 3 stars, 21 4 stars, and 17 5 stars. This does include several rereads that are expected to be on this list. Now we're going to move on to favorites. The way the favorites are going to go, I'm going to basically just tell you what they're about and why I recommend them, and then we're going to move on. It's pretty simple. All these 5 are interchangeable. I do think, now that I'm like looking at this list, I think I have one that I do love more than everything else. But there's also a nonfiction on this list, so we're going to start there, because objectively this nonfiction is completely different from the other 4. And I'm not about to live the life where, oh, you don't see it? I don't want to live the life where I'm like, oh my god, this nonfiction is just not as good as this fiction. That's not the life we live. The nonfiction I have on here is One Day Everybody is Going to Be Against This, which is a nonfiction written by a man who is telling both his life story and also what's going on over in Palestine currently and the genocide for Gaza and that Israel's doing. And so they're talking about it, and they're talking about how it's a very hot topic button, how everybody's supporting Israel, and how one day everybody will against this and they'll say, no, we never once supported that. We didn't support genocide, even though the majority of people in America do support genocide. Not just America. It's a very broad thing. I think the book does an amazing job. It's both a mixture of a memoir and both factual with stats, but also just in general nonfiction. I learned a lot from this novel, including other fiction novels that I read this year, but I learned a lot, and I would highly recommend it. It is a new release, so it might be a little expensive to come by, but I would put it on a hold on your local library. I think it's definitely worth it. Now, out of the 4, I'll save my favorite for the very end. Let's start with How to Become a Dark Lord and or Die Trying by, oh my god, I cannot remember who this is written by. This follows our main character as she is in a fantasy world, kind of like Groundhog Day or a video game. And she has lived like 1,000 lives at this point in this fantasy world. But she's lived like 1,000 lives in this fantasy world, and she keeps dying, and she's like the chosen one, so she's supposed to go feed the Dark Lord. Well, eventually, when you die so many times, she gets kind of irritated by the situation, and so she decides instead that she's going to become the Dark Lord. Very funny, it's very crass. I also, in my opinion, think that it's very graphic in certain ways. There is a trigger warning list in case anybody needs it. I do think there's certain things in here that I think could be. I found it absolutely hilarious, so it's very tongue-in-cheek writing. The Davi as a character talks to you as she goes through it, which I loved. I just really enjoyed this novel. However, I do like to preference it when I talk about this novel. This is a novel written by a man with a female protagonist in first person, and you can tell, but it was not a factor for me. Being a man, obviously, I don't really think I'm one to talk on the subject matter, but I do want to mention it here. But I found the world to be just so interesting, and I just absolutely loved it. If you can hear noises in the background, for some reason, Akasha is really obsessed with playing with one of my bags inside the office. Is that real Angelina back there? That's crazy. She never sleeps back there. Moving on, we have Nick Blake. Oh, I can't. I'm just going to call it Nick Blake. This is Angie Thomas's relatively new, I think it came out in 2023, but the new one comes out this year, a young middle grade series. And this is a world. It's a magical world. We already know that our main character, Nick, is familiar with this world. In the beginning of the first chapter, she owns a hellhound. Like, she gets one for her birthday from her dad. And we soon learn that her dad has kidnapped her and she had a lost, I can't remember if it's a twin or if it's just a brother. And her parents are put up for a crime. Her favorite author is also a part of her family. These are all things you learn really early on in the novel, no spoilers. And I adored this character so much. I enjoyed the world. This is another one of those books. I just love finding series where I can be like, oh my god, you fucking hate Harry Potter? Or I don't know if you hate Harry Potter, but you hate J.K. Rowling. Well, here you go. Here's another one you can read to your kids where they're learning great things. You're learning a lot about Black culture and Black community in this book, but you also learn about the Underground Railroad. There's a lot of things that are talked about throughout this novel, which I very much enjoyed, and this is just the tipping point, which I love. The story is really well rounded, and I don't know, I think Angie Thomas really has something here really special. So I couldn't recommend enough. I also couldn't recommend enough for you to read with your children. I think it's a great comp for Harry Potter. Now, I do know it's only the first book and the second book's coming out, and it's like a 3-year difference, so they do have to wait. I have a few others. If you want me to make that list, let me know in the comments down below. That being said, let's continue onwards. Also, unshockingly, trans rights matter. Fuck you, JK. Okay, next we're going to talk about is The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. This is the first book in the Mistborn trilogy. I have read the first 2 in this series. This one is rated 5, is all I'll say. Mistborn is about several people. Vin, Klaus, there's quite the characters are large and lively, and we're in a world where metals can bring you magical abilities to grow strength, to be smarter. There's a plethora to energy, like to run on like steam. There's a plethora of things that these metals can do, but normally most people are born, if they are born magically equipped, only with one of them. Vin, who is found in the very beginning of the book, she is currently with her brother doing all these different criminal things, and everybody's really mean to her and horrible to her. We learn quickly that she is a Mistborn, which means that she has control over all the power. This book is all about taking down an empire, which is very ambitious, and it has a jaw-dropping third act, in my opinion, and it is a perfect first book in a series. This is the beginning of the Cosmere for me, which I'm very excited about, and you'll get to experience all that with me this year as well. That being said, the next one we'll talk about is I Think They Love You. This is a fake dating fame-related story. So we have our main character. He is a part of a very affluent event planning business family, really famous event planners. And then we also have his love interest, who is trying to fight for LGBTQ rights for youth and all these things, very big activists. And so they decide to fake date over the course of the next, few months for all these events that he has to go to. And he told his family that he had a boyfriend, and he lied and said it was him. Then the way he gets out of it is he gets to meet all these really high class people, to help donate towards his causes and things. And it's a give or take. Beautiful, has some of the best steamy scenes, spicy scenes I've ever read in gay fiction. So you got that to look forward to. If you love red, white, and royal blue, it also gave me those vibes. I'm not gonna say it's exactly, but I'm gonna say it's given those vibes. The third thing, the steamy scenes are just perfect. Also, a lot of people have problems with third acts in romance novels. I think this book handles the third act quite well, if you understand what I mean. I don't want any spoilers up in here, so yeah. And then lastly, my favorite book of the year so far, and also my favorite book of the quarter, would be Model Home. River Solomon is the one who wrote this. This is a haunted house story about trauma. This is a haunted house story about so many things. We are following a family. It's a family of three kids, and then their parents. They've all kind of drifted out into their own ways. I would highly recommend looking up the trigger warnings for this one. This is a very hard to read novel. I bawled reading this book. I cried really hard reading this book for a multitude of reasons. Some I'm willing to share on the internet, some I am not willing to share on the internet. But it's about this family. They move into this home when they're young, and it's a very affluent white neighborhood, and all these weird things start to happen around the house and around this neighborhood and things. They believe that their house is haunted. Jump forward 20 to 30 years later, I think it's 20 years later, when all the kids are moved out, they find out that their parents have died inside this house. They never left the house, and the parents end up dead, and we're trying to figure out why. And they don't believe it's murder, but they do believe, I don't know, there's a lot of suspicions going around. And so that's the coast of the novel, is that you find out that their parents have died. I think that happens in chapter 2 or something. I think we introduce the characters. Then we jump backwards because there's a lot of flashbacks and stuff throughout the novel. It's absolutely fucking beautiful. Me talking about it makes me want to sit down to just go reread it. But also, I like my sanity, so I will not be doing that. Which is a really hard thing to say, oh, I recommend to you. Because, vaguely, I don't know if I do fully recommend it. It's such a hard read. It's up there, in my opinion, with, A Little Life, with such hard descriptions to read about, just hard subject matter to read about, and the characters, in my opinion, are so vivid, so magnificent. However, this book, I'm pretty sure, has a really low Goodreads rating. So you're going to think I'm talking shit, and that I'm lying. I'm not, I promise. I loved it. However, there are sections of this novel that do feel very aggressively yelling at you, and I don't think it really worked for a lot of people. It really fucking worked for me. There's one in particular, chapter 14, that's how much it stuck with me, that I know the exact chapter. I will never forget where I read it, when I read it, what I was doing. Oh, 9 yards. It was life-changing. I don't know a great way, but it was life-changing. So yeah, those are the top 5 books I read this year so far. Let me know in the comments down below what the top 5 books you read so far this year is. And that being said, that brings us to the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll talk to you guys all very, very soon with another video soon. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.